It's really coming down outside.
All right. So we've got a few more folks that we are expecting, but we'll just go ahead and slowly get ourselves started here. Hello, everybody. My name is Karen Young. I'm going to be one of the Zoom support people for our meeting today, but I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen to get our slides up here, and also turn things over to Chris Rose, who will be getting our meeting started. So give me one moment here.
All right.
All right. Bring up my slides. So you should all be able to see a slide that says Solano Fire Safe Council. Can I get a thumbs up if that's the case? Yay. All right. So Chris, go ahead and get started whenever. We're at 6:03.
All right. I just want to thank you all for coming this evening. This is the second Solano Fire Safe Council meeting that we've had, and we're excited to all come together. And I'm also excited that we are all starting this together. This is a group and community effort, and we're looking forward to meeting on a monthly / maybe bi-monthly basis into the future. Just a little housekeeping is that we're going to be monitoring. There's multiple people on this Zoom call session, and we're actually, if you have questions, we're going to be monitoring the chat room and answering questions and prioritizing and answering those questions. So if you do have a question, go to chat and go ahead and type that in. So you might ask, why are we here? Why are we doing this? And I think it's relatively obvious why we need to work on fire resiliency, fire prevention, and also post-fire work, but not necessarily why we're forming a fire safe council. Fire safe councils are pretty common. Most counties in California have them. And essentially, it's a way to create a forum in which all those interested in fire resiliency and its various forms can come together to share ideas and also be heard and talk to others that are dealing with issues as far as fire. What do we hope to accomplish in starting a fire safe council? Well, essentially, like I said, it's a forum for all for people to meet, but it's also the main goal is to decrease the likelihood of devastating effects of catastrophic wildfire. And some of the ways that we're going to talk about doing this and work on this into the future is writing grants, setting priorities for the most important things to do as a group. And by actually forming this government and this not government, but this structure, it just means that there'll be less redundancy. It'll give us, again, a forum to all come together and have our ideas heard. Essentially, the Fire Safe Council will be, at its core, fire professionals, landowners, stakeholders that are involved in working on fire resiliency in Solano County. So yeah, thanks again for being here and working with us on this important project. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Chris. And just backing up really quickly here into our agenda to quickly review that. So Chris Rose from Solano Resource Conservation District got us started. I'll be doing a little bit of attendee introductions, and then we've got a number of other things on our lineup today. Don Ryan from the Solano County Office of Emergency Services will be leading us in reviewing the purpose and mission statements for the Fire Safe Council. Nancy Nelson will be introducing a bunch of different folks who are providing updates and introducing different partners. Tracy Kettleman on here from Forever Green Forestry will be handling our Q&A, and Chris Rose will be back again to wrap us up. And just a few quick things, since I do see a question in here. Yes, I will make sure that the recording gets posted on the Solano Resource Conservation District website, and we'll include a link to the slides as well on there. So hopefully that addressed those questions. So we've got a bunch of us on here today, and we're not going to have time to go through verbal introductions for everybody, but what would be helpful is if you could, in the chat box, provide a text introduction to yourself, either just if you're here as a ordinary attendee, that's something to note with your affiliation, or if you've got a professional affiliation that brings you here this evening, go ahead and note that, please. But take a minute to see who else is on here today. We've got a lot of different sectors represented from Solano County. And thank you all for sharing this. I see a lot of different responses coming in. But thinking about what actually is bringing us all here today, and we're coming from a bunch of different sectors representing a number of different organizations and entities. And we're all here to discuss this nascent Solano Fire Safe Council, which will eventually have some sort of formalized membership. And if we're talking about what it means to be a member of the Fire Safe Council, there are two different ways we can think about that. There's the business side of being a member, which is, voting, attending meetings, participating in a committee if that's relevant. But there's also the motivation side of being a member. There are different things that bring each of us to this meeting this evening, and different things that will keep you coming back and participating in this forum. Maybe it's your professional affiliation, maybe it's your personal experience with fire in Solano County. But to share all of those different motivations, we do have a poll that we're going to launch here. So Elizabeth is going to get that started. And if you could go ahead and share through voting on that poll, what is it that most motivates you to participate in the Solano Fire Safe Council? You can choose your top three, and if your answer isn't represented on here, click that other one and type your motivation into the chat box. So our options here, if you're looking at this poll, we've got protecting communities via defensible space, planning, etc. Restore landscape health, habitat, and climate resiliency. Support effective evacuations. Support local fire response. Promote outreach and education to build fire-adapted communities. Pursue funding for Fire Safe Council projects, or something else that might better describe your motivation. So I'll leave this up for another moment or two. All right, it looks like we have all participated on there. So as Elizabeth, are you able to go ahead and share the responses for folks? All right, so you should be able to see on here how the group responded. And there are a lot of different priorities represented in here. Some of us have picked other, but it looks like there's a mix of everything represented. Some of us are here for protecting communities and properties and lives. Some of us have more of a landscape focus, or evacuations or fire response. There's a number of us who are here because of that outreach and education aspect. Grant writing and funding, it's not always the most thrilling, but it does help get the work done. And whatever it is that brings you here today, I see that Sherry added into the chat box, here to support cross-county collaborations and wider community support. And it's really, really good to see that in there. Sherry's joining us from Napa Firewise. So part of what we're hoping to see with this countywide Fire Safe Council is enhanced collaboration between our neighboring counties. But whatever it is that brings you to this forum this evening, we are grateful to have your participation and your support. And we hope that you can continue to contribute these different motivations and priorities as we work together to build the Solano Fire Safe Council. I'm going to turn it over now to Don Ryan from Solano County Office of Emergency Services. He will be leading us through our mission and purpose section.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Don Ryan. I'm the Emergency Services Manager for Solano County. Solano OES received the CAL FIRE grant that is funding the establishment of this countywide Fire Safe Council, and OES staff have been attending and coordinating committee meetings to help get things started. So why do we have these statements? We're going to talk about mission and purpose. And tonight, the mission and purpose statement are pieces of the bylaws for the countywide Fire Safe Council. These two pieces describe the identity of the council, what it hopes to accomplish, its priorities for the future, and how we envision the council working on those issues. So how are they drafted? The coordinating committee reviewed examples from other countywide Fire Safe Councils and modeled our drafts on those. There were a lot of discussions about things to include to make these statements reflective of Solano County, including our county's characteristics, wildfire risk, and values. These drafts that we'll be sharing this evening were a product of lots of collaboration, but it was only among the coordinating committee, not the broader membership of the council. And that's where your participation comes in tonight, or participation comes in tonight. So our breakout group plan, we're going to split up into breakout rooms shortly so that you can provide your feedback on these purpose and mission statements. These pieces of the bylaws will provide the backbone of the Solano County Fire Safe Council, and they should reflect the priorities and thoughts of the members working with us. You'll be assigned to a breakout room. When the notification pops up in Zoom, click join and you'll move into that room. And we'll have about 15 minutes for each of these breakout rooms. Each room will have a member of the coordinating committee who will have a copy of the purpose and mission statements handy, along with some discussion topics. That person will be recording the group's feedback, suggestions of things to change, edits you would like to see made, and we'll be incorporating those into our drafts. Each room should also nominate someone to report out to the main group on what you discussed. After our 15 minutes is up, we'll all come back into the main meeting room to share our feedback. We'd like for one person to report back on what their group suggested, so nominate someone as soon as you get into your breakout room. If you have any questions on the breakout plan, please put them in the chat and someone will assist you. All right, so now that we know the plan, here are the statements we'll be reviewing together. Remember, a member in your breakout room will have copies of these, so you don't need to write this down or memorize them. The purpose of the Solano County Fire Safe Council includes, but is not limited to, promoting sustainable fire and hazardous fuels management that supports ecological and cultural integrity and climate resiliency, supporting sustainable post-fire recovery for both communities and landscapes, supporting outreach and public education on community wildfire resilience, response and recovery, assessing fire risks and working with fire agencies on hazardous fuels reduction efforts, and helping create and sustain fire-adapt communities. How are we going to accomplish this? By contributing to the development, update, and implementation of the Solano County Community Wildfire Prevention Plan, promoting community fire safe planning and coordination, including local risk assessments, supporting fire-related community groups such as local fire safe councils, prescribed burn associations, and Firewise communities, and finally seeking available funding for proposed and approved wildfire resiliency projects to make Solano County safer from wildfires. The mission of the Solano County Fire Safe Council is to promote fire resiliency within the county by providing a forum for communication, collaboration, and education. All right, so those are our mission statements. and we go to the breakout rooms. And so through the magic of Zoom, we'll now move into our breakout rooms for 15 minutes to discuss these statements and brainstorm any edits your group thinks should be included. Remember to nominate someone to report out on what your group suggests, and we'll see you in 15 minutes.
All right. Hello, everyone. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up my notes document so that I can share that with everybody. While I'm doing that, do we want to do quick introductions for who's here? Lee, you want to get us started?
Yeah, sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name's Lee. I'm working with the Solano Fire Safe Council to assist with the social media aspect and outreach. So nice to meet you all. Can I maybe turn it over to someone else?
Yeah. Let's see. Jonathan, you want to go next?
Yep. Hi, I'm Jonathan Hoffland. I'm Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council member, or not board member, but member at Cherry Glen area and beekeeper throughout the county who likes to watch my bees burn.
All right. Terry?
Yeah, Terry Schmidbauer, Director of Resource Management with Solano County. So over, probably the division that will interact with this group the most would be Public Works.
All right. Marvin?
Member of the Green Valley Fire Safety Council. As Jonathan said, a member, not a board member, and been with that for several years now. And we have a very active group, as I'm sure you all know. We've been quite successful in implementing a lot of these goals that you all have now.
Yes, and we'll be hearing a bit from Rochelle later on. Chris Hirschbeck?
Hi, yeah, I'm here with the Bureau of Reclamation. I work at Lake Berry as a field office. And then, of course, we work with Lake Solano as well.
Great. And Luckenbach, is that, not sure first name there.
Yeah, that's Matt Luckenbach. Good evening, everybody. I'm the Fairfield Fire Chief. Glad to be here.
All right, thanks for joining us. All right, so, and I introduced myself earlier, but Karen Young, I work with the Solano Resource Conservation District on a number of different fire projects, including helping get the Solano Fire Safe Council put together. So as Dawn mentioned, the coordinating committee has been working on drafting a number of different pieces to help build this organization. And two of those pieces that we really would love to get feedback on right now are the purpose and the mission statements. So I have those up here shared on my screen. You should be able to see this. And just for the ease of thinking about it, we've added on these bold capitalized sections to help summarize the theme of each point. So stewardship, recovery, education, that sort of thing. Those words aren't going to be, or those labels aren't going to be included in the final version, but just to help us organize our thoughts. So I'm going to give us all a minute to reread these. And as you're doing that, just keep thinking about, is there anything that's missing? Is there anything that you think doesn't fit in here? All right. And then just a quick Zoom logistics thing aside, Lee, it looks like room 6 could use some assistance. Are you able to go join that one?
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so was that enough time to reread through the purpose and mission?
It looks very thorough to me. This is Chris.
Thanks, Chris. So part of what the group was providing as discussion prompts, or are these statements easy to understand from looking at these purpose and mission statements? Do you think that you have a sense of what the Fire Safe Council hopes to accomplish and what it hopes to become?
I have a question. I'm not sure. Item 1, promoting sustainable fire. I'm not sure what cultural integrity means, and I'm not sure how climate resiliency fits into our goals.
Yeah, the climate resiliency piece was added in. Some of what's included in here is perspective to help with future grant applications. So climate resiliency is in there just with a acknowledgement of the ever worsening fire threats that we're going to be facing due to changing climate, and how our fuel management activities can both address immediate needs or immediate risks and set up our landscapes for a future that has worse fire weather or just fire conditions, but also tucking that in there to allow for the possibility of more competitiveness in a grant that does have more of a climate focus. There was a sentiment that adding climate resiliency into this section of the bylaws might provide a bit of something to refer to for a grant application that comes out of the Fire Safe Council.
One thing,
Yeah.
Sorry. One thing I'm not seeing, which we discussed in the earliest meetings, the emphasis on it being grassroots based, because the existing fire safe councils are very, very grassroots based. They are the communities, and this countywide council has been much more top led, or it's very top dominated at this point. It's majority government officials in here now, as opposed to at the county or at the 2 fire safe councils, there's maybe 50-50 or less. And it's very much the grassroots, the community.
So the membership of it, or the voting membership or non-voting membership, that is going to be a different section of the bylaws that is not really fleshed out yet. That was something that has been talked about during some meetings, but everything with this.
But more what I'm saying is that the purpose is the people coordinating the people, because without the grassroots base, we're exactly where we are, because we already have all the government agencies in the county. And the purpose of the fire safe councils is to coordinate the grassroots base more so than coordinating the government agencies, because the government agencies already have means of coordinating pretty effectively. I mean, it doesn't always work perfectly, but the fire districts and the cities generally can figure out ways to work together and meet together fairly regularly. But just more so that a lot of the emphasis should be the grassroots organization and getting the communities involved, because the lack of community involvement's a
Mhm.
big. If there was more community involvement, we would be able to solve a lot of the fuel issues if we had neighbors helping neighbors and that sort of a thing.
Okay, so adding mm, let's see, to better prepare Solano County residents for fire. And to reflect the grassroots character of the Solano Fire Safe Council, something like that.
It's workable.
Okay. If you've got suggestions for,
I don't have a specific.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's one of
I
the.
didn't see a draft before this. Sorry.
No worries. This is really the first time that it's going out to a broader audience, and the first time that it's got things like a lot of verbs and punctuation. But the makeup of the Fire Safe Council is something that we've heard a little bit of comments on and some confusion in a few different discussions, in that the local fire safe councils are very neighborhood based, very grassroots, very much focusing on that neighborhood's issues and engaging the people that live there. And looking at how countywide fire safe councils are structured in other areas, they do have more of a, or less of a proportion of just residents and community members, and a bit more of a agency or organization buildup and makeup. And partly that's just because of I think in some places how staff time is supported for going to these, but meetings aren't always held in a time or place that is convenient for people who have other jobs. And that's something that we've heard is making the just community member involvement and engagement a priority is something that has been emphasized with putting this together.
So a lot of the things that we're trying to get, that are listed there, like prescribed burn associations. If we had less regulatory, there would already be prescribed burn associations in this county. I mean, I know quite a few people that have been working on it and talking with districts. The regulatory side, I don't know if there's a way for this to be where we can have a little force with the air district, because the districts can't allow us to do burns, is my understanding, and less so in the Yellow Solano side than in the Bay Area side. But if there's a way for us as a Fire Safe Council to interact with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District with a little more force, because they don't seem to be interested in that PBA side. Because if we could do prescribed burns, and if we could do burn guards along some of the roads that burn more frequently, it would, I mean, it's not going to prevent all the fires, but it would reduce some of the ignitions along roadways, and we could control some fuels that are very, very hard to control. Just from a mechanical standpoint, from human labor.
So I added a note on there that, exploring ways for the Fire Safe Council to, advocate with a bit more clout for prescribed burn associations. And that's something that actually the RCD is planning to do. We've got budgeted in the next few years for a scoping project to see if a prescribed burn association could be feasible. I think there's definitely interest in it in the county. It's the feasibility and getting all of the different regulatory entities at the same table to talk about how to make that happen, and whether that's possible is I think going to be where maybe the Fire Safe Council can really help advance that. That was also included in there so that the Fire Safe Council would have a bit more of a leg to stand on in seeking funding for a possible prescribed burn association. So like I mentioned, some of this stuff is prospective. It's put in there with the hope that by tucking it in now, we can use it for grant applications later.
That might conflict with your climate resiliency word. You know, burning throws an awful lot of smoke up into the air.
It does, but the advantages of doing prescribed burns when it's predictable, you know that there are going to be smoke impacts. You can plan it for favorable wind days when the smoke isn't going to be impacting too many communities. And also the ability to treat large areas with a more cost-effective solution than just, you know, mowing or mastication can really advance the ability to manage fires or wildfires when they do happen. That's one of the arguments that prescribed burn associations run into a lot, is that while it's still making smoke, you're still releasing this carbon, but the way in which you're burning with prescribed fire at a lower intensity with lower severity can really help add to your toolbox of defenses when your community is looking at how to prevent or protect themselves from a wildfire. And the ability to know when it's going to be smoky versus, well, I guess these days we do kind of know when it's going to be smoky. That's what August and September are, right? But yeah, that's all. That's something that could be clarified in there. Let's see.
And Corinne, I still haven't heard the cultural integrity part of that.
Yeah, let me hold on.
Forgive me, I'm an old man that doesn't know all the buzzwords.
Marvin, one thing that might tie into, I don't know if it's true or not, Karen, but there's a historical practice of the tribes that were in the area or still are in the area to a degree burning. And so you can tie in doing things like that into you can basically tie it into it being a historical practice in the area. Is that somewhat along what you're aiming for, Karen?
I think that that's where that part came from in the discussions. I'm not sure exactly who put that part in, but I do think that it was in reference to the cultural burning practices that were a lot more widespread in the county back when, you know, large areas of the landscape were managed with fire for fibers and for food resources. And those practices have been very much discouraged or made a lot more difficult by a lot of the regulations. And so there are groups that are, especially prescribed burn associations, that are working to make cultural burning easier for those practitioners to do. And that was included in this particular one to reflect the historical relationship that our landscapes had with fire. Fire was a pretty common feature on Solano County landscapes before fire suppression became the mandate. And so a nod to that, but how this Fire Safe Council would actually promote you know, management policies that support cultural integrity is open to discussion, and what that would look like is much like the rest of this, it's all in draft form.
in the world of fires, it's also nearly impossible to get a burn permit for a piece of property unless you do have a vineyard or a orchard or something along those lines. And then again, it's Bay Area quality, air quality people that are preventing that. And have people, some of the other landowners, more apt to clear their property if they could do it by burning, as opposed to hiring organizations to come remove and chip and haul, which is very expensive.
We've heard from our neighbors over in Yolo County that some of the people they were expecting to be interested in their free chipping program have said, well, it's a great thing to have an option, or to have as an option, but it's a lot easier to make a burn pile than it is to arrange everything in the precise orientation that it needs to be laid out for a chipper to come. So ways to make fuel management easier at a larger scale are definitely something that could be addressed here. And I can add that as a comment too.
Terry, you're muted. I don't know if you're trying to talk.
Yeah, just mouthing. So I guess my one comment would be, I'm trying to read through the helping create and sustain fire adapted communities. To me, that kind of sounds like it's creating them from new. I know what we're trying to get at is existing communities and bring them up. So I wonder if that could be better phrased with, you know, helping improve the fire safety of existing communities and ensure new ones, creation of new ones are fire adapted or something to that extent.
Okay, so create taking, or that you're saying that reflects, it doesn't reflect the reality that there are fire adapted communities and should be a bit more.
Well, it doesn't reflect the reality. To me, create means you're doing something, you're building something new. And I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to.
If we go with this expand.
Well, I think what we're trying to do is improve the fire resilience of existing communities. I mean, create gets you there, I guess. It's just, it makes it short and sweet the way it is. It just, I would be concerned it reads that you're building something brand new rather than adapting an existing community to make it fire resilient.
All right. So I think Dawn mentioned this, but we're going to be sharing back to the main group all of our different responses that we're getting here, but also throwing all of the different versions up on the wall together and seeing how those can get integrated into one more cohesive mission and purpose statement that has a lot more community input. Is there anything, let's see, there had been some discussion about rearranging things to indicate different priorities. We had questions on here about, you know, is anything missing? Should anything be added? Should anything be removed? Any thoughts?
Do we have a time frame when the goal is to have a final on this? Because I don't know if I've thought through it enough to say that I really have a whole lot of detail on thoughts.
The mission and purpose statements are probably the first part of the bylaws that are going to be formalized, but we aren't really set to any one strict timeline. It's more of a recognition that this is probably going to take a while. And I mean, looking at YOLO, I think they were hashing out bylaws for something like 6 months with their community fire safe count, or with their countywide fire safe council. So I think it's going to be slow, but oh, and it looks like we are on our timer for breakout rooms closing. Okay. So is there anybody in our group who wants to kind of report back on our discussion, or do you want me to take that over? Anybody want to be group spokesperson?
Is it possible to see this draft? If I were to talk for the group, it'd be a little easier just to see the notes.
I will be sharing all of the different bylaw or all the different documents as each group is reporting out. So yes, you should be able to see it.
I'd be willing to just give a quick run through of everything we talked about.
Okay. So Don will call on all of the different groups, and when he gets to ours, you can go ahead and take the stage there. And I'll see you folks back in the main room. It's like we're headed there anyways.
This meeting is being recorded.
It looks like we're all back.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say go for it.
Okay, everybody, thanks for your time. And now we'd like to hear from all the groups that went ahead and met in their various rooms. So Tracy, you're first on the list for your group to report back.
Okay, and then is Elizabeth or Karen, are you sharing the screen?
I'll pull it up here.
So our group, we had a great group, mainly of agency partners, and had a great conversation. If you could zoom into that, Karen, that's pretty, you can get rid of all the comments on the side. Really good conversation. And the main thing we did was to move those keywords that we had used just for our own notes to put them actually in the front, and it makes the document read really well. I like that. That was a great idea. And then we changed fuels to vegetation, and that was a recommendation from Cheryl at CAL FIRE. It's something that they're doing, and we all agreed that vegetation management really captured what we're doing more than just the word fuels. And then scrolling down, CWPP just changed prevention and protection. That's what a CWPP is. And we thought that the word umbrella didn't fit well in CWPP planning and grants, so we changed that to engagement. We talked about whether that might be collaboration or something else, but we liked engagement. So that's basically what we did. Anybody from our group want to add anything? Cool, that's it.
All right.
Great, thank you. Then the next group is Chris Rose's group.
Hi there. You're not going to see a whole lot of changes on here. Our group was really engaged, but it was more on process and actual resiliency work and structure discussion on how individual groups will be working with the Solano Fire Safe Council. So really, the group had no comments with the document or with the purpose and the mission, but more just wanted to make sure on clarification of the structure and what all these terms mean, and so it was really a good discussion.
Excellent, thank you. Nancy Nelson's group.
So we selected our lead to be Kelly, who will present our discussion.
Hi there, everybody. So we actually didn't do a lot of editing. It was a couple of questions that came up. One is on the definition of sustainable fire management, which was a good one. And then also just in general, the question of will there be definitions included with this document in the end, and another definition on fire adapted communities was recommended, if so. And then a couple just yes on protecting watersheds, and a couple of the bullet points. But let's see, what other questions? One of the questions we had was on the CWPP, or a note was that several of us had heard of it but not seen it, and learned that it's being drafted by a consultant soon, and that the council will be providing priorities. So that was helpful information. And then we had a question about prescribed burns in Solano County and just interest in where that will go. So that was kind of the general questions that came up in our group. And then we talked about the potential of, kind of prioritizing the seeking of grants and fire-affected communities bullets, and maybe moving those more towards the top. And then also just really adding something about a community-led process and the level of involvement of community members, and including water agencies, which sounds like that's already happening. So we just had a lot of random points, but really appreciated it. Overall, I think everybody really appreciated everything that you guys have down on here. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Robin Rains group, you're next.
We have selected Mark as our representative for our group.
I'm Mark. We spent, first thing, I think the group was primarily made up of residents, Robin leading, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but we had one lady from Yolo County. Anyway, we focused on just the order or the priority of these statements. We worked a lot on the purpose. You can see how we moved, like the outreach to the top, assessing fire risk. You can see the changes that we made there. We did have a discussion around the word resiliency. We feel that there's synonyms, I believe, but we felt that resilience was better than resiliency. So we spent some time debating that. Anyway, moving down, Robin. Again, we just worked on priorities here. We didn't really make many changes as far as words. So, and I don't think there's anything left, is there? Oh, okay, we moved the word collaboration. So it was primarily rearranging the order of the bullets to prioritize what we felt was most important. Anyone else?
Added planning to our mission.
Thank you, Tanya. That's it.
Great, thank you. Just has to go through the list. I know we had some changes. Rose is not here, and Rochelle Sherlock is not here. So Reveille, your group.
That's me. I think I got elected for that. Heather Nichols here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. So our group were primarily community members and cross-county collaborators, including myself and Napa Firewise, Sherry with Napa Firewise. And if I was to, we didn't do a lot of wordsmithing. I think reducing redundancy and some, keeping things simple was something that came out of our conversations. But we did have a lot of discussion, and I think if I could sum that up, it was moving toward action with all hands on deck. So something that came up, especially in the mission statement, in terms of not just promoting fire resiliency, but creating fire resilient county or fire resilient community, so that there's a little more action in that. We had a couple of different ideas that it sort of tied into how do we accomplish this, and including, so we have supporting fire safe community groups there as the third bullet, for example. But there might need to be another bullet to recognize the fact that we need all hands on deck. Not one entity is going to be able to be successful doing this on their own. So, and then that's the venue that we're, the Solano Fire Safe Council is trying to create, or the forum, that there's many stakeholders. You had a RCD in the room and a nonprofit in the room, both those kinds of agencies and county agencies. There's lots of different ways to run a fire safe council in it, and getting to the place of how Solano County is going to run their fire safe council is one of the first steps that our group felt strongly about. If that makes any sense. Reveille or Randy or Sherry, feel free to chime in, or anyone who was in our group.
Thank you, Heather. I think you summed that up very well.
Okay. Thank you. Karen Young's group.
So we had Jonathan Hoffland as our group reporter.
Okay, so we talked about a handful of things. One thing's brought up climate resiliency. We weren't 100% sure how that tied in with the specifics of the county side. Then, oh, sorry, bumped myself off my screen. We wanted to make sure there was emphasis on the grassroots side. And we also talked about on the fuel side, it's hard for individual landowners to get burn permits, especially in the Bay Area side. And the Bay Area Air Quality Management District's possible hurdle on the prescribed burn association possibility. So if the entire group was able to give a little more heft towards that idea of a prescribed burn association with the Air Quality Management District, we could do some things possibly along the lines of control burns in areas that burn more regularly to burn up some of that fuel, and then like burn guards along roadways where we have fairly regular fires. Maybe not on the interstates, but there's some county roads that have more regular fires. I don't know. Karen, did you have anything? I'm working off my phone, so I can't see super well if there's anything I'm missing.
Yeah, there was a comment in this bullet point here about the use of the word create fire adaptive communities, and create implies building something new, when what we're trying to do is more adapting our existing communities to make them more fire resilient. And yeah, I think that was mostly it from our group. Anyone else have something to chime in with? All right, I think that's it for us then.
Super. And the lastly, the last group, Elizabeth Davis.
Sorry, ours is a little messy. I moved things around and, but I'll kind of hit the high points of what we kind of started with was, I had a really great group. We had people from CART and Red Cross and Poudre Creek Council and a representative from the Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council. And preparedness was talked about a lot. We didn't hash out necessarily what that language would look like, but we wanted to make sure that that got added in some capacity. So it's added here as a bullet, but also somewhat implemented into education. So that was prioritized. And similar to a lot of these other groups, collaboration was actually really important to our group. So we actually did opt for that word, and pulling in people that might not necessarily be in the hardest hit areas necessarily by fires, but like kind of bringing people in from across the county to help and to volunteer and to be involved. as a way of support, as well as kind of collaboration across organizations and making sure that the Fire Safe Council, the countywide Fire Safe Council, is intended as a forum or a place for people across organizations to come in. I think those were our biggest high points. The reason it's all highlighted in different colors is because we were trying to organize it in a way that felt more natural to the flow of the orders in which these things happen or can happen. I realized some of those things change with fire, but I think the idea was that you want to educate people so they can become prepared, so that you can create fire adapted communities, and then stewardship and fuels work happens, and then recovery is following fire. And that was the intention with that reordering. Overall, I think the mission was well received and they thought it was very clear.
Okay, super. Then that's the last group. So thank you all for your suggestions. We have the notes from your recorders and we'll be adding these edits to the draft. We'll have updates on the new draft at the next meeting on October 17th. So with that said, thank you again. Next up is Nancy Nelson, who has updates from a number of people on activities and projects related to fire safety in Solano County. Nancy.
Thank you, Don. So I'm Nancy Nelson with Solano County, and I will be introducing some key partners this evening that will provide updates for all of us. The first is Karen Young with the Solano RCD.
All right, thanks, Nancy. So I wanted to introduce briefly the coordination committee, or we've been referring to it as the coordinating committee at times, but however you've heard it, it's a group of people who have been meeting to hash out some draft bylaws and discuss a structure and governance model for the Fire Safe Council. So those mission and purpose statements that we've been reviewing together this evening came out of a lot of long discussions with a bunch of very committed people. This committee is comprised of representatives from the RCD, local fire safe councils, there are county partners on there. And if you have questions about this committee, and it's not really an official committee since without bylaws, we can't have official committees yet. But if you have questions about this group and what we're doing, please feel free to email me. My email address is on the slide right there, and I'll put it in the chat box as well. That's it for me, Nancy.
Thank you, Karen. Next, I'd like to introduce Robin Rains, who's going to provide an update on Zone Haven.
Hi, good evening. So the update on Zone Haven is pretty brief. We are still in the process of doing quality control on the GIS data layers between the Zone Haven GIS folks and the county GIS folks. So this is taking a little longer than we would have hoped, but we want to make sure that when we come out with the zones, that we're doing so from the best possible data layer sources that we can to try and minimize any changes needed to zones after they're already published. So once that's done, we'll be moving to final zone review with all of the city organizations that assisted in building the zone map. And then publishing will be the next step after that. So I don't have a date yet, but just know that we're still working it. And the reason it's taking so long is to ensure the quality of the product that's going to come out to the community. So thank you for your patience on it.
Thank you, Robin. And next, I'd like to introduce John Ryan, who will provide an update on the CWPP.
Okay, for the CWPP, the vendor, SWCA, it's very confusing because we have SQUA in Solano County as well, but SWCA is the vendor. They have, well, I introduced the project to the fire chiefs this past week. We have a monthly meeting with all the city and district chiefs. And so all the cities are providing their points of contact for folks that are going to represent them on this, they call it the core team. So the core team will have their first meeting, I'm hoping next month, as we build out this very big Excel spreadsheet. And the company has already started reviewing GIS data, mapping, historical fire data. They've gotten in contact with CAL FIRE. And of course, the company has also done a number of CWPP or plans in the state of California. So they're already working on it. The first, there's a series of 3 meetings. The first one obviously is the core team gets together. They start talking about the data that the company has already collected. Then the company goes back and starts building what they think should be the projects and the results of all this data crunching. The second meeting will be an all-day meeting. So we're trying to prep the core team members to prepare probably sometime in November, December for a full day meeting where they'll go through the results of what SWCA has come up with. And then finally, there's a third meeting that will go through the draft and get ready to publish the CVPP. There will be opportunity for the public to comment on the plans and the projects that will be the result of this. And as I heard in the group here tonight, a lot of people don't really know what a CVPP is, but a very basic description of what it is. It's a list of prioritized projects that we should take under consideration in the county to reduce fire hazards. It's a lot more than that, but that really is what we're looking at. And it will help us get funding for these projects to reduce the fire risk in Solano County. So right now I'm waiting on a date. I'm waiting for the company to set up a date for the first core team meeting. Some of you in this group will probably be part of that. And looking forward to start and see what the company has already found out. Any questions?
Before you move on, Nancy, briefly, if you're not aware, the LNU burn scar is in a flash flood watch. So if you have not heard, we're in a flash flood watch tonight. That's not an initiative, but information that we want to make sure you're aware of. So make sure you're following us on Facebook at Solano OES. We post all of our updates there, and make sure you're signed up for Alert Solano for emergency alerts.
Thank you, Robin. That was excellent. Next, I will be introducing Lee Asensio with the Solano RCD, who will provide an update on the website development and social media.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lee with the Solano Resource Conservation District. I typically work as an education manager with the Solano RCD, but I will be working on the social media for the Fire Safe Council. So this is just getting off the ground. But we have a Facebook and Instagram created, and that's pretty much all we have so far. But if you want to follow us, we're on Facebook. You can see our information there, the Solano Fire Safe Council, and we're also on Instagram at Solano FSC. So content is going to be coming shortly if you want to follow us on that. And then there's also an update on our website. So we have a website that's getting created as well. This is currently being created and it will be coming online soon. As soon as it is, we'll send everybody a URL as soon as it's ready to launch. So both on the website and with our social media, we're planning to have lots of different resources available. So please let us know if there's anything specific that you'd like to see on either the website or social media. You can contact Karen Young as well with any questions or suggestions that you have on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. And next, I'd like to introduce Rochelle Sherlock, who is president of the Green Valley Fire Safe Council.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, hold on one moment. I'm just going to skip through. We had a few screenshots on here, so those are flying by you as we get to Rochelle.
Okay. And will you pull up the PowerPoint slides?
Yep, your slides are up.
Oh, they're up. Okay. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So it's great to see everyone here today. My name is Rochelle Sherlock, and I'm the president of the Green Valley Fire Safe Council. And I just want to say, I want to start this whole thing off with just saying a big call out and kudos to both the Solano RCD and Solano County for the work, the grants, then really pulling this effort together so we could have a countywide fire safe council. I'm super excited about it. It's nice to be part of it, and I'm looking forward to having these meetings as we go forward. The Green Valley Fire Safe Council, we got started in 2019. Next slide, please.
This was the slide rearranging that I mentioned.
Oh,
so
okay.
bear with me while I restart the slideshow. We had a slight change of slide order here. Okay. Here we go. Thanks for your patience, folks. There you go.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So our whole approach, we've had this four-pronged approach really from the beginning, and it's all founded on establishing partnerships and working collaboratively together. And one of our first partnerships obviously was with CAL FIRE, but also with the Cordelia Fire Protection District. So the way we're approaching wildfire preparedness is through education, engagement, fuel reduction, and home hardening. Next slide. This is just a quick look at some of the work that we've done this last year that looks at both the engagement and education. We did a training for defensible space ambassadors, and then we did the LE 100 inspections this year. Would you click again? It's one of those progressive slides, Karen. You can go ahead and do the next 2 clicks. And of those 400 LE 100 inspections, about 62% of them failed on that first inspection. So Green Valley has a lot of work to do. This was all done within the FireWise, Green Valley FireWise site. The next one, we're in the process of doing re-inspections, and the pass rate now is at 85 to 90%. So the residents are really taking seriously this education. They're getting engaged in doing the work that they need to do for the defensible space and the home hardening. We plan to go forward next year and do more re-inspections. This is all based on volunteerism and really, the community coming together in the partnership. Next slide. So part of our fuel reduction, well, we've got, last year we did some free green waste events. We're doing them again this year. Our first one this year was on August 27th, and you can see up there in our upper left-hand corner is Trisha Dobson. She's one of our Green Valley Fire Safe Council members. Dennis Wells down below. And, part of our partnership is with the Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council. And we had both Rose, Reveille, Jen Smith, and David Stevens all come out and help us with those green waste events on that first day. Next slide. We had the opportunity then to actually partner with the Center for Volunteer and Nonprofit Leadership to make September 10th Green Waste event also a 9/11 weekend of service and remembrance. And so what we did was we actually held the Green Waste event like we did previously. And then we also got a crew of volunteers to work on a piece of property where the residents were actually land rich but income poor. So they were elderly, couldn't really do much of the work themselves, didn't have the resources to actually pay people to do it. And it also created a little bit, the way their driveway was crowded, it created a little bit of a hazard, both for them exiting their driveway or entering the driveway, as well as for people coming down Rockville Road. So here's some pictures of it. Next slide, please. So this is the property beforehand. You can see this big old oak tree right there. On the left-hand side, and then also on the upper right-hand side, there's part of the roadway. You can see all the vegetation. Down in the bottom too, you'll see a lot of the ladder fuels, the vertical and horizontal fuels, pretty dense. We ended up clearing 1/8 of an acre, plus clearing some of the roadway for the ingress egress. Next slide for the after photos, please. And this is what it looked like afterwards. So you can see here's the big oak kind of hidden behind that center picture in the lower bottom left. That's what defensible space looks like, right? It's beautiful, it's park-like, all of those ladder fuels and horizontal vertical fuels were removed and taken away in the free green waste event. This is very volunteer intensive. So it takes a lot of resource and a lot of manpower, but we're lucky to have great partners in doing this effort. Next slide, please. So what we have coming up now is that's related to engagement and education is a wildfire safety expo. And we're doing this with the Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council and other partners. We have a lot of vendors already signed up to do this. I'm working on finalizing that flyer to get out to everybody, but please come participate. I know CART's going to be there. The Halta Project's going to be there. Solano County OES is going to be there. So we just have a lot of interactive activities for people to engage in fire safety and wildfire safety, given that it's National Fire Safety Week. So that'll be the conclusion of that. And our last slide. Oh, yep. And then the last thing is we were awarded $950,000 to do a fire break and a shaded fuel break around Green Valley. And so this is only going to cover phase 1 of that particular project. Right now we have the CEQA is in process. We expect that CEQA to be completed mid-October. Maybe late October. And the goal is to convert that into a Cal VTP. So it'll be something that we can go back to over a long period of time to continue to maintain those breaks and add additional kind of safety, create a control line for suppression for firefighters, et cetera. Part of that grant was, and you can click the next 2 clicks, Karen. Part of the grant was to purchase equipment to build regional assets. So we're going to have an excavator with a masticating head that'll be available for other fire safe councils to use and use in the county and surrounding counties, even Yolo County. And then we also included some money for FireWise incentives. So when groups like the Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council got their FireWise site, there's a little bit of money there that can help them kind of get started, and other FireWise sites too. So that's us. We've got a lot going on and excited about it. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we can't do any of this in isolation. It's all through the partnerships and incredible collaboration that we've had since we began, and including what's going on right now. So thank you all.
Thank you, Rochelle. Great update. And then next, I would like to introduce David Stevens, who will provide an update from Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council. He is the president of Pleasant Valley.
Good evening, everyone. So as part of the process to become a FireWise community, we had to develop a 3-year action plan. And I thought sharing some of the elements of our action plan would help people relate to projects that maybe will occur in their community, or maybe could have mutual interest with them and their community. So Karen, if you could forward the slide, please. So I listed our elements based off of the various topics and priority by year. So education, home hardening, fuel reduction, evacuation planning, and emergency preparedness. And it's a step of taking small bites and approaching things little by little, and developing programs and educating the public and the community. And so things that other communities have done is like social media programs and bulletin boards and welcome packets to new homeowners, to position our Fire Safe Council so that we're going to be in a position to pursue and accept grants in the future. Year 2, to host a wildfire preparedness event, which we've kind of fast forwarded 6 months, and we're partnering with Green Valley to make that happen even sooner. And then year 3, maintain, report out progress and achievements. These programs are, take small bites at a time, and don't let it become overwhelming, and grow the programs and make sure that what we're creating is something that is sustainable and manageable, and that we can continue to work with our neighboring partners and jurisdictions and grow programs, and have things like the green waste programs like Green Valley's doing, and then chipping programs at some point in the future. Home hardening efforts were big items that we identified during our assessments of the properties, and the types of construction features, whether it was combustible exterior sidings or non-combustible exterior sidings. We have a lot of work to do in the Pleasant Valley area to make our homes safer, improving the vents, construction features, the roofing, improving decks that are attached to structures, or even wooden fences, which wooden fences are a ladder fuel. They allow fuel continuity to allow the fire to travel from the wildland to the structure. And we need to educate the public to improve those types of facilities. And then fuel reduction work. So we have quite an agricultural area, even though we have a large rural residential, 2.5 to 5 acre parcels. A predominant of the Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council is very rural and agricultural in nature. We hope to develop a livestock grazing plan in the future. We have established a list of livestock grazing contractors for people to access through our through the Fire Safe Council. And then by year 3, we hope to create things like working with the fire department to create fuel breaks and various funding aspects to pay for those things. And then a big item, we experienced a devastating wildfire in the Vacaville region with the LNU, and as well as many other fires. We had the Quail Fire repeatedly over the years. Evacuation and wildfire preparedness is something that we really need to work at and get better at and be more prepared. And one of our greatest findings as far as things that we need to improve is access egress routes, addressing, signage, and wayfaring to where you have bifurcations in roadways and emergency responders aren't able to find or determine where they're going or how to get to a property. And then in addition to that, potentially establishing safe areas of refuge out in the rural environment as well for people that live in long or constrained areas that may need to take shelter closer to their home than trying to make it out to a public roadway. Year two, mechanical, chemical. I was asked earlier during the breakout session, what do I think of prescribed burning? I'm an advocate of prescribed burning. I hope that we can develop and educate and market that concept. We need to work on our fire trails and our fire roads and our secondary accesses in and out of our communities and our neighborhoods. I know specifically in my neighborhood, a piece of property that separates my street from another street turned into an interstate during the LNU fire because people couldn't get out going the way that they're supposed to, and they were fleeing for their lives. So we need to identify those access points or those secondary accesses and potentially improve them and make them permanent emergency access points. And then again, maintaining, improving treatment, water supplies. The rural environment is very deficient in water supplies and enough water to sustain firefighting activities. So we need to work with our fire agencies and our water purveyors and develop plans to improve water supplies in the rural environment. Karen, I believe that's all I have, but I may have had a third slide. I can't remember now. I may have deleted it. Nope. Okay. So I wanted to share this illustration. So in this illustration, this is something that I stole out of a document that was just shared with me, this is a planned development. This is a community that they planned for fire, they planned for wildfire. And if you study the picture, you'll see that they don't have wooden fences along the rear of the properties where they would allow the rear fence to catch on fire and then traverse to the home. They have non-combustible fencing. The vegetation, the closer the vegetation is to the fencing or to the property lines, they use lower vegetations that cannot generate or output a great deal of heat or fuels in the future. So the construction features, non-combustible siding, non-combustible roofs, there's setback, there's lots of concrete, there's lots of hardscape. These are the kinds of things that we need to see in our community, and we need to develop these through ordinances, planning and development processes, planning and development documents, standards, and enforcement aspects. So, this is an Orange County photo, but this is something that we should very much be seeing here in Solano County in the future. And I appreciate everyone's time this evening, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, David. That was a great update. And so now at this time, I'm going to introduce Tracy Kettleman, who will be taking us through the question and answer period.
Thanks, Nancy. And I've got a couple questions that Elizabeth has sent to me. And if anybody has questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And the first question is, what is a fire adapted community? And it's actually something I know about. So I'm going to share a couple of graphics for you because I think this will help people to understand. So fire adapted communities are part of the 3 tenets of the National Cohesive Strategy, which is basically the national approach to wildland fire, all based on science. And so it's fire adapted communities, safe and effective wildfire response, and resilient landscapes. And so fire adapted communities in that definition is human populations and communities are as prepared as possible to receive, respond to, and recover from wildfire. And there's actually the website, fireadapted.org, just got redone and launched recently. And there's going to be a lot more information coming there, but there's a lot of information here that shows you what is a fire adapted community. And this is goes into detail, but this graphic actually comes from the Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network. And there's a whole new tool for building and implementing fire adapted communities, who's involved in fire adapted communities, and when and what part of the process can one be involved in fire adapted communities. So I will go ahead and share those links in the chat with you. That's really briefly what a fire adapted community is. And then we have Cheryl's question about the CalVTP, which I think was answered in the chat. Other questions? Who's got questions and comments on our meeting today? Well, and I'll go ahead and share that fire adapted link in the chat. Don't be shy. You can raise your hand or put them in the chat. We had a lot of great information today.
And feel free to unmute if you've got a question you'd like to share.
We've got some time, so please. Well, you guys are making my part of this meeting really easy.
Actually, I had a question. I'm not supposed to ask one, but I'm gonna anyway. I was just curious, and maybe I was just curious about, and I was gonna harass Elizabeth to do this quickly, but I thought I didn't know if it would happen. But just a little feedback on whether doing this, we went back and forth on whether to do this hybrid, in person, or virtually. And it's one of those things to where if we do it virtually, more people are involved. But at the same time, nothing's better than doing it in person. So I don't know if we could do a poll or people could just kind of chime in about that. But that is something we're working on. We want the most people to come, but also it'd be better to do it in person. But right now we chose virtually because we thought we would get more people. We almost got 50. So I think that's pretty good.
I'm getting a poll together.
I was just gonna say, yeah,
real quick here.
Perfect.
If it were in person, would it be Fairfield?
Did you hear that question, Chris?
I did. I was going to say something funny and decided it wasn't. I don't know. I mean, it could be rotating. We were thinking somewhere between Fairfield and Dixon. So it seemed like Vacaville would be like the most central location for a meeting. But at the same time, it kind of goes to where we could find the best location. And that might be in Fairfield, that might be in Vacaville. So I would vote for Vacaville just because it's the closest to where a lot of it's happening. Yes.
And the poll is launched, so if y'all see that and you haven't voted yet, please do. It's actually pretty evenly split. So Sarah asked the question, should a representative from government agencies like air quality be invited to some meetings or at least asked for their input? So we do have Yolo Solano Air Quality with us this evening. So they're participating, and any thoughts on whether or not to invite Bay Area Air Quality as well? I assume that they cover the further west part of the county.
That's something that we can add to our list.
Yes, they do cover the west part of the county, and that's, well, Vacaville has their fair share of hillsides with lots of dry grass, as does Green Valley and Napa County. And we're in Green Valley, we're under the Bay Area air quality. And as David had mentioned, we're under very strict rules and regulations. So if the group comes up with an idea, it should be bounced around with those agencies right away so that we're not hit with, oh no, you can't do that. I mean, yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that.
Thank you. Kenny, would you like to speak to that as Yolo Solano Air Quality?
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time talking about my stuff, but yeah, Yolo Solano Air Quality covers Dixon, Rio Vista, and Vacaville portion of Solano County. Bay Area would be Fairfield, Benicia, Vallejo. I'd love to answer everyone's questions in Solano County about air quality, but our jurisdiction only covers kind of the northeastern portion. So
this, Rochelle here, and I actually think we should include the Bay Area. One, Green Valley is filled with vegetation. Is probably, I know there's a lot of fires out in Vacaville, not minimizing that in any way, but if Green Valley goes, the vegetation and the smoke pollution would be enormous. The hills between Cordelia and Benicia and Vallejo is intense. Vallejo has some of the worst air quality, and there's some real disadvantage in terms of that environmental. I'm trying to remember the name of the scan there, but they're heavily impacted with environmental pollutions. And if a fire came through, they would also be heavily impacted. And so some of those communities, parts of Vallejo's, again, I think we're part of a disadvantaged community in terms of the disproportionate impact, and there in some of the communities more limited resources to address it.
Thanks, Rochelle. Yeah, and I've been in Fire Safe Council meetings where they cross county lines and different jurisdictions, and they're all invited. So I think it makes sense if you've got 2 air quality districts here to bring them both invite them both to the meetings. And we had a great representation of agencies in my breakout group. I was impressed, including cities. One last question, actually, I just ran out of time. So if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat. And with that, I think it's my opportunity to introduce Chris to close us out and take us home. It's all you, Chris.
Wow, that seemed like it went too quickly. I think it's an indication that there's a lot to talk about. I know that in the breakout group that I was in, I think that we could have just talked and talked and talked about all the different issues. And the local fire safe councils are going to be forums for that, but this meeting and others related to it are going to be offer a great opportunity for all of us, and talking about air quality and inviting the Bay Area as well as the YOLO Solano is a perfect example of that. I think it's a great forum to have everyone at the table. And as far as I think, there's not like a big plexiglass like window along those areas. So I think when we're talking about prescribed burns and air quality, I think we're gonna have to involve everybody. And I just really appreciate everyone showing up, and I hope for continued involvement and cross-pollination between us and Napa and YOLO and all the groups around us. I know that we have a few projects that we're working regionally, even with with people from Colusa and Lake County. So this is really, really exciting. I also want to formally invite y'all to the October 17th meeting, which is our next meeting, as well as saying that there's a recording of this meeting that is available. And also, if you want to get a hold of us, there's the 2 email addresses down below there. Yeah, if you have any questions, you know where we are. And also the exercise that we did looking at the mission and our purpose, I really appreciate people taking the time to get involved, and we're going to incorporate the comments into the mission and the purpose, and we'll be sharing that at on the October 17th meeting. So if there aren't any questions, thank you for all showing up and being involved, and have a good night.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris.
Sharon.
All right. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
And let's stop the recording and save the chat.
You